So the first thing we're going to start to build is this drawing here, is a part. And this will bring us to that link will allow you to get into my drawing. This should be a view only document. So this is the part that we are going to be making here. And you can kind of see these are isometric drawings, so they might be a little confusing of what you're looking at. Here we're actually looking at this from a top view. So if here's our cube, right? Right here is our cube, and I'm actually just going to kind of rotate this around for a minute because I know it's hard since you guys can't maybe physically have the cube in your hand. But I'm going to kind of show you what you're looking at. So here's the cube, and once again, to rotate like this, I'm right clicking and rotating that around that axis. So there's what we are going to be building this week. Okay, so again, that top view here, when I'm looking at it from the top view, that top view is what you're looking at right here. Okay, and so this is our top view, and again, what we're looking at is this part here. When we see that kind of laid out, it is stacked. So this is 3 units high here. If this is 3 units wide here, all these are blocks and they're 15 by 15 by 15, right? We can see that here. The 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters. This side's going to be 30 millimeters, right? So this side will be 30 as well, right? So 15, if all of this is 15, we can see here, right, that this would be 45. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of understand what it is that we're looking at here. Okay, so that's the top view, and then as we come here, this view is going to be our front view. So let's, as we're looking at it from that, we can come here to our front view. Oops, where is it? There it is, front view. So this is going to be our front view that we're looking at, and there's the rotation of the front view. And this last view here that we're looking at is going to be our either a left or a right. It's our right view. Okay, so and that last view is coming from here from our right view. So that's what we're seeing here. So let's get started on our actual build. So for this, we are going to come up here, and OnShape, you are going to be creating a document, and we can call that document Part A. And you're going to create that document in a public place. So please bear in mind I'm going to have to kind of toggle back and forth a little bit, but let's get started on how we're going to build this. So first we need to pick a sketch plane. So in this first document, this part A here, we're going to build it in that same sketch plane. So that is sketched on the front plane. So in your document, I'd like you to select in that sketch, select the front plane. So I'm going to re-edit a sketch, I'm going to double click on it, and it takes me back to where I was. So I'm going to select a front plane. And what I want to do is to really kind of draw out that first section. So what I'm going to do is face this to me at 90 degrees, and I'm going to start at my point of origin. Now I can start either drawing out my bottom and then coming up, or drawing out my side first. But as you can see, my first issue is if I draw this out to the bottom to 45, that's going to be in inches. So I want to convert that to millimeters. So I'm actually going to come up here, and I'm going to go into my document, my workspace units, and I'm going to select millimeter. And 3 is fine. All this should be fine. Actually, I take that back. Right here, you're going to want to turn this into grams. Okay, so we're going to build in the metric system, so millimeters and grams, and we're going to accept that. So now, as I come into this, I'll delete that line, and I will start by re-entering that sketch, selecting a sketch plane again in the front, and then I'm going to choose this line. And I'm going to simply start by sketching this line out here. So I know my bottom is going to be 45. Now, if you try and get this exact, you're going to be here all day. So just click and get it close. And I know this is going to be 30, coming over 15, up 15, over, down, over, and then I'm finishing that shape. So that is my first shape that I'm really building out. Now what I need to do is dimension that out. So here's my dimensioning tool. So now I can really go in here and tell it what to be exactly. And I know I want that to be 45. And I know I want this one to be 30. And if this one's 30, I would like this one to be 30 as well. So just, and what I'm doing here, I know I'm kind of moving fast, but I'm clicking on the actual line. So as that line highlights, I'm clicking on it, and then I'm going to drag that up and clicking again, and then it will highlight, and I can dimension that to 15. So like this height, I want it to be dimensioned to 15 as well. And so this blue line is telling me this one is undefined, right? Where I've defined it to 15 here, and that might be confusing because it looks, but I haven't defined it from here to here. Okay, and that is at 14.7. So I'm going to dimension that to 15. Now, let me do that again because that was a little bit confusing, and I realize that. So please, if my dimension tool is, make sure your dimension tool is on. And as I click on this line, it's selecting that line, this blue line. And now I need to come over here and select on another line to say I want a dimension from this line to this line. And now it's telling me you can do that. So I want to dimension that to total of 15. Now that everything in this sketch is turned black, that means everything's fully defined. I've told every line what dimension it's going to be. I don't need to necessarily come in and define this line because I've already defined it is what's going on over here. So now that everything's black and it's fully defined, I'm going to accept my sketch. And now that I have this sketch built, right, I can come in here to my sketch just like we did before. If you didn't close out of that, that's okay. We're going to extrude this now. And we're going to extrude it to a depth of 15. And when I say depth, that means a distance. We're extruding that out to 15 millimeters as well. So, and we're making a new surface or new product. Okay, so when we accept that sketch, now, right, we have drawn that out to 15. So we have our basic shape here. All right, so now we are just going to kind of keep building on top of that. So next in that sketch, we need to build out another shape that kind of comes in right here. Okay, so if we look on that bottom, it's going to, if you remember, it will tear up right here. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to select that front face again, and we're going to sketch. Now it's going to ask what plane do we want, right? We want to sketch on this plane, not on the front plane. Not on the front plane. We want to actually sketch on this. I can select this as a plane now. And for that, I'm going to select a corner rectangle because that's going to be pretty easy to do. And as I drag that out, now I only have 2 lines I need to define. So I turn on my dimensioning tool and define this line. This line needs to be defined to 30 millimeters. Okay, and now this line needs to be defined to 15 millimeters. And now we've got that fully defined, because this is telling this line that it's 30, this 15 is telling this line that it's 15. Great. Now what I need to do is I need to extrude that. And if you notice here, I'm not making new, I'm adding to what I already have. So I want to take that out to a depth of 15 millimeters as well. Okay, and I'm going to have it merge with everything. I'm going to have it merge with that original piece. So now I have that built in to my original piece. Now from there, I only have one more block to build out, and that's going to be a block right here. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to, again, front that face to us. We're going to sketch. It's going to ask us to select a plane. We're going to select this smaller face. Okay, and that is selected. We're going to sketch using this this again. This tool. And this one now it's able to kind of lock into the midpoint there, which is what we want. But let's just go and dimension this anyway and make sure that that's 15 millimeters, and this is 15 millimeters, so that's great. So now that we have done that, now all we need to do is extrude that out and add that, and we're going to add that at 15, and again we're just going to merge it with all, and now we have our basic shape here. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too bad and we built out this basic shape. Now if you recall, we need to get a circle in here, so I'm going to face it to the bottom, and that circle goes through right here, and I remember that circle is 12, a diameter of 12. So we need to select a sketch plane, and we're going to select this bottom plane, and we're going to center point on a circle. Now there's a couple ways to do this. One, you can see I'm going to scroll in, and again I'm scrolling in with my scroller ball, and from right here you see it will automatically, if you kind of hover on right there, it will just automatically lock on to the center of these 2 points. And when I say these 2 points, it's giving me the center of this line and the center of this line. So that is one way we can do it. So if we didn't do it that way, we could also just do it doing math. If you can't get these to work for you, that's okay. Let's say you're just going to get a circle going, and you can dimension that out. You're going to dimension that out by just clicking on the center of that circle and clicking on that line and telling this that you need it to be half of 15. So you can do one of two things, right? We know 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So that's one way you can do that. So we've dimensioned that line. So next we need to go from this line to the center of that circle to that line. And so for that you can also type in an equation and do 15 divided by 2, hit enter, and 15 divided by 2 is going to be 7.5. So that's really the other way we can lock that in. So you can either, if you can manipulate your mouse to lock into that center point, that's great. If you want to double check your dimensions, you can make sure that's 7.5 by 7.5 by smart dimensioning. Now we need to smart dimension this circle, and to do that I'm just going to click on that circle and drag out to the side, and I know from our sketch earlier that that is 12. Now what I need to do is I need to extrude cut that. Okay, so I'm going to click on my extrusion, and instead of adding it, I'm going to remove it. So I want to remove, and now I like to, instead of removing it from this bottom face where it's hard to tell, I always like to kind of shift off to the side so I can see what's going on. So right here, if I remove a blind is just telling it to cut to a depth, which is fine, 25 millimeters, and since there's nothing on the back side of this, that would be adequate, and we could accept that and that would work. From here we can say up to next or through all. Many of these will work. So let's say, for instance, let's just say through all. Well, that didn't work because on my extrusion, right, I'd like to tell it to merge with all, solid surface, and again, that didn't work. Well, let's try a different way. Let's try to go to blind and have this here. Sorry, that was our issue. I deselected when I clicked on that. So that some of you guys might run into the same thing. So it's asking, what do you want to extrude? Because I could really do two things here. I could select this and extrude everything around that, right, and just leave my circle, okay? Because I really have two different shapes that I'm working with in this extrusion. I have the staircase shape that I've made, and I have this circle shape that I've made. So I want to deselect that, and I actually want to select the circle shape. So I can do that blind. Again, I can do that through all. Numerous of these will work, but just again, you saw I was having some issues with that, and that's okay. We can work through that. So just make sure that you have this circle selected, and from there we've built our shape. So let's look at our shape, and then we'll come back in here and check that on this part A, and they look like the same shape. But this is how we got to check and see if we've done this right, is by getting the mass properties. So the mass properties, if you go to the drawing here, okay, you can look down here and see the material is 1060 alloy and the weight is 86.54 grams. So how we check the mass is we go back into our shape, and we have to, if we right click on it, we have to assign a material, okay? And when we assign a material for this, right, we can search in here and we can type in the 1060 alloy. All right, so there's the 1060 aluminum alloy. All right, and we can then accept that as our material. And to get our material, what we need to do is we're going to need to click here on our part 1, and when that highlights in orange here, that means that whole part is highlighted. We're going to come down here to display mass properties, and right here we're going to see our mass, and our mass is 86.545 grams, which is great. It's really close, which if you're this close, that'd be sufficient, because we're looking for 86, looking for 86 point, 54 grams, right? So this is just done out to 2 decimal places, where on ours is done out to 3 decimal places, which is okay. And if you really don't like that, you can always change that here in your workspace unit to display out to 2 decimal places. Here the mass, have the mass display to 2 decimal places, and then once we come in here, we got the 86.54 grams. Alright, so we've got everything built out. Now we just need to turn it in. We have the correct mass. So to turn that in, what we're going to do is you're going to come in here to link sharing, and you're going to copy this link to the clipboard. Once you have this link copied to the clipboard, you can come in here to Schoology and click to turn it in. There's a part where you can type in there, and if you would just copy and paste and turn that into me through Schoology, that'd be great. Now, if you're having some major problems and you can't figure out a part, or you're really struggling on something, you can email me and also share with me through an individual and give me editing privileges and type in my email here. Right, my email is msimon3 at cherrycreekschools.org. So that's a great way that we can collaborate on this online if you're having some issues. So please turn that link in to share to me and let me know if you have any other questions. Hopefully this goes well for you. Again, my hope is this should take you about an hour. If it's taking you a lot longer than that, please email me and let me know. I don't want you spending forever on this part. Thank you and good luck.